Hey, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Talk. We've been doing a couple of these through the last couple of weeks through the coronavirus pandemic. We are so glad that you're here. For those of you that are here, thank you so much for dropping in this evening. This evening, we are here with Gill Larsen. Gill, thank you so much for dropping in. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's my honor.
For those of you who don't know Gill, on the surface, she is a board certified Christian and pastoral counselor, along with about a million other titles that you could throw behind her name and credentials. And basically, what that means is she has counseled families through grief. She has counseled with pastors through stressful situations and seasons. And we're so excited that she's just going to spend the next 30 minutes or so with us. So once again, thank you so much for joining in this evening. If you don't mind, I'd like to kind of start with some background questions. First of all, how long have you been in the counseling profession?
I began the process of getting my master's degree in professional counseling in 2008. In 2010, I actually began switch from book studies, you could say, to the practice of counseling as an intern. I got my degree in professional counseling in 2011. And so I guess about the last 9 years, I have been working in the counseling field. Counseling, I do pastoral counseling, I do all types of Christian counseling. I'm also a board certified coach, life coach, relationship coach. I'm a licensed minister. So I work in many different things along those lines.
What was your influence to get into counseling?
So that's a loaded question. And you know about this a little more personally than some people watching may. But basically, my husband was killed in a tragic accident in our backyard in 2007, the summer of 2007. And so I would say that number one, my journey into getting a degree in counseling was to counsel myself. I had decided that even if I never counseled anybody else or it became a profession, that I needed help and I didn't know what to do with myself or my children. And I had 3 children at the time. They were 7, 3, and an infant. So that was my number one thing, was I was going to get this degree just to counsel myself through my grief. And another impetus was just a few weeks after my husband passed away. We were at I worked for TBC, and we were at a Bible college conference. And I heard a counselor speak, and she began to talk about how she helped people, basically. And my heart just was turning inside of me with compassion. And I knew that I was deeply hurting in a way that I had never hurt before. And my heart just yearned to now reach out to people who were hurting like me and had no idea what in the world to do with that. So that's how I got started.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very interesting that it took a hurtful moment to turn it around and not only help yourself, but now to help others. And others is the majority of what I asked you on to talk about this evening, because there's a lot of people who are hurting right now.
Yes, that's true.
This coronavirus really has changed people's lives in every sense of the word. And so I was wanting to kind of jump in and kind of talk about some of those things. I recently read that we're due to the COVID-19 or the coronavirus, that unemployment is supposed to go up to around 20%, which is absolutely crazy. So what would you say to those people who they're worried that they're going to become a number?
Right. And that's a very real worry. I mean, in my home, we have already become a number, as you say. My son works 2 jobs. He's in college, and he got 2 letters on the same day from each place that he worked saying that he needed to just go ahead and file for unemployment. So this is something that it's hitting home, even maybe for some more so than the virus is. But I'm going to go in a little more depth in just a minute. But just kind of to cover the surface of that question, I would like to say that the Bible says, gird up the loins of your mind. And so, in moments like this, the unknown can just cause a flurry of questions, and we can get stuck in this cycle of what if, and what about this, and what's going to happen next. And the unknown is just kind of a deep, dark space. Yes, and our minds can just run rampant with that kind of a situation. So the Bible says, gird up the loins of your mind. You got to sometimes just take the driver's wheel of what's going on inside of yourself. The Bible says things like, tear down any thoughts or imaginations that come against the knowledge of God. And the knowledge of God tells me things like, he's always with me, he'll never leave me, that he will provide for me. It may not be the way I wanted or expected. Sure. You know, it may be manna every day, bread, and I really wanted some quail and some good meat and barbecue, and right. So it may not be always what I wanted or what I expected or what I like. But the knowledge of God tells me he will never leave me. He will provide for me. And of course, you know, we all know you can look to the scriptures for many more promises than that. But just right off the top, I would say that's kind of a generic, so to speak, answer, and we'll get in depth in just a minute, is just gird up the loins of your mind, take control, take the driver's wheel of what you're thinking about, how you're thinking about that. What are you saying to yourself? The Bible says, let the weak say that I am strong. You know, so we have to take that driver's wheel. Anything that comes against the knowledge of God, anything that's trying to tell you you will be destroyed, you're not going to make it, you're a loser, anything like that, that is not the knowledge of God. And so that's why we have to take those kind of thoughts and imaginations captive, all the what ifs, the imaginations, what ifs. So we just have to kind of take those things captive, fill ourselves with the word at this moment, with other people who build us up and encourage us, and lean on God and lean on each other.
That's so good. You know, on Twitter the other night, I was just kind of scrolling through, and there was something trending that it kind of, I guess as a pastor, kind of hit me. And the trending topic was coronavirus anxiety.
Yes.
And at first, I'll be honest, I was chuckling through some of it because I'm like, they were funny to me. And then it got a little somber. I was like, this is real. Yeah. This anxiety is definitely real. And so how should people handle these anxious moments?
And if I look down, I prepared a few notes because I know that I'm nervous. I'm not used to doing live interviews. So I did prepare a few notes. If I look down, forgive me. I want to make sure that I kind of cover a few things, don't leave anything out that might be helpful. So, some people already struggle with anxiety. So you add the unknown like this to it, and it just, makes it even bigger. It feeds it. And not just anxiety, depression, grief. We've all lost something in this process. So grief, depression, for some people, not being able to go to work, not get out of the house, not go to the gym. That is very depressing. Their bodies don't even know what to do with themselves anymore, Yeah. So it's not just anxiety. So let me go through just a few things that might be helpful to someone who's experiencing any of those things. First of all, realize that we're up against an enemy we can't see. So yes, that adds to the anxiety. We're getting a swirl of information. Sometimes it's opposing information. What do we believe? We've got a friend over here who thinks it's all political. We got a friend over here who thinks we're all dying. We got a friend who thinks it's going to last 5 months. What do we believe? All these things add to the anxiety. Circumstances, not just the coronavirus, but all of the things that are flooding from that. I had a family member that passed away. We can't even attend the funeral. What about the people who had a wedding scheduled? Or the people who are having to leave their loved ones in the hospital that are dying because they're telling everybody that's not necessary to get out of the hospital? There's a lot that is trickling down, all the trickle-down effects of this. So yes, it's causing a lot of loss and anxiety, loss of normal life, provision. We always knew we'd just get in our car and run to Walmart, right? And you're going to get your toilet paper and your meat, and I may get there and there's nothing. Yeah. So security, dreams, roles that we carried, all these things They're being lost. It's very real. Thoughts can be very big tormentors if we let them be. Like I talked about earlier, if we don't grab control of those thoughts, they can trigger emotions, which just send us spiraling in the wrong direction sometimes. People say things like, my mind just won't shut off. What do I do? We try to put on a face and be strong for our kids, our families, our coworkers, for whatever reason. And then add on top of that most of us are in some kind of isolated situation. We're on some kind of lockdown. So you add isolation to that mix, and yes, we have a very real thing going on. And so the first thing I would say, that if you're experiencing anything, anxiety, depression, grief, any of these things, you just need to slow it down and take some time to look inside of yourself and ask yourself, what's really going on? What's really going on inside of me? Kind of begin to just do a survey of yourself. What's going on? Am I nervous in my stomach? Am I holding tension in my shoulders? Am I feeling fear? What's going on inside of me? Just take some time to slow it down and acknowledge what's going on. That's the first step, because emotions are God-given. Emotions are different than feelings. Emotions are basically like the dashboard on your car. They're there to warn you that something is going on so that you can pay attention to it and fix it. And if my check engine light comes on and I don't have time to check it, or I want to check it for some reason, and I just put tape over it, I didn't fix the situation just because I don't see the light anymore. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of us do. When emotions rise up like this, we just try to put tape over them and ignore it and go on. It's going to be okay. We tell ourselves things that are really avoidant things. We think we're telling ourselves good things, but really they're just kind of avoidant sometimes. And we're putting that tape over the dashboard. The problem when you do that is that it doesn't go away. And it's kind of like holding a beach ball underwater. It takes energy and pressure. It takes chemical energy for us to suppress emotions. So your brain is working, your body is working, your glucose is working, you're suppressing emotions like holding that beach ball underwater. But as soon as you either don't have the energy anymore, or maybe you get distracted or something, boom, it's going to pop up somewhere, somehow. And then that's often what happens to us. We maybe end up with some kind of disease or heart attack or, any number of things because we suppressed it and it popped up somewhere else. And it's natural to, our systems are going to want to do something like fight, become hypervigilant in moments like these. What am I going to do? Oh no, I got to find a job. I got whatever, to become hypervigilant and do that fight. Or some people, their cycle, their tendency is to flight, right? Flight or freeze, or, retreat to their man cave, or avoid people and withdraw, isolate themselves, and no one else understands. All these kind of patterns to either kind of go up and become hypervigilant, or go down and avoid, withdraw, all of those kind of tendencies. And there's many actions we can do within those tendencies. And so what we have to do is we have to acknowledge what's going on, slow that process down. What's going on inside of me? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And attend to those anxious parts or those depressed parts. We need to give them some attention for just a little bit. We don't have to live there. I'm not saying live there, but just they need some attention, just like the light on your dashboard. If you don't attend to it, if you just say things to yourself that are avoidant. Now, let me just say this. Everything I'm kind of about to say is not wrong in and of itself. It depends on how you're doing it. So if you're trying to avoid the emotion by saying reassuring things like, it's going to be okay, it'll be fine, or if you're telling your kids or whatever, oh, it's no big deal, it's going to be fine. If you're avoiding, trying to just reassure and act like it's not really there. If you're trying to minimize or trivialize it, it's just a media shower, it'll all be gone in just a little bit. They're just trying to scare us, I'm overreacting. You say those kind of trivial things to yourself. Or maybe you try to use reason or logic, like, I don't live in an area where there's a lot of the virus going around, and you just try to use reason and logic to avoid. Sometimes we do this with faith, right? We try to avoid what's really going on inside with our faith under the headings of faith. and we say things like, God's got it all under control. I don't have to be worried. And we're just kind of trying to, in South Louisiana, we say ta-ta ourselves, right?
I haven't
But
heard that one in a while.
we're not really addressing the emotion. We're not really tuning into what's going on inside of us, paying it some attention. We're just using those words that sound good to put the tape over the dashboard and ignore that something really is going on inside of me, right? So none of those things are bad. If I reassure my friend, if I say things like, it's going to be okay, we really don't live in a place where it's that bad right now. No, those things are not wrong in and of themselves. It's when you use them as a pattern to just avoid and suppress, and you're never really getting to what's going on inside of yourself and paying attention and attending to why the light is on, because the light is trying to tell you something. That's when these things kind of become, I don't want to use the word bad, but they become a negative pattern, okay? So the way we attend to what's going on inside of us, we slow it down, we sit down, we take a minute. What's going on in my body? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? How's my body reacting to this? So let me lead you through a few steps. So it's kind of like, instead of suppressing the ball and trying to hold it under, it's like we take it out and look at it. What color is it? What size is it? How does it feel? Right? So we might say things like, what's being triggered in me right now? Is it fear? Is it anger? What is being triggered inside of me? What's going on? How do I feel in my body? What are thoughts are going through my mind? We can ask ourselves, what's happening in my body as I feel, for example, if I feel fear, do I hold tension in my shoulders? Do I clench my fists? Do I get stomach aches? What's going on in my body? What meaning do I make of this? That's a very important question, because it's usually not just an event. It's what meaning we make of the event. I use this example or this analogy sometimes. 5 cars can pass by a wreck on the side of the interstate. And I may be late for work, and that wreck slowed me down. So I pass by, and the meaning I make is, oh, that's what made me late for work, right? But the next person behind me may recognize the car and say, I think that's my sister-in-law. And they panic and pull over on the side of the road. So 5, 10, 15 people may pass the same event, but what they do with that, what meaning they make, what they tell themselves about what's going on is really the barometer for how they're going to react. So that's a very important question. What meaning am I making of this? Am I telling myself that this world isn't safe, that I'm not enough, I can't provide, whatever it is? What is my impulse? When I feel this way, what's my impulse or my action? What's my tendency to do something? Because usually when something's triggered in us, we have a cycle that we go through. Do I retreat? Do I withdraw? Do I isolate myself? Do I eat? Do I shop? Right? Yeah. Do I smoke? Do I drink? Right? Do I seek attention? What do you do? What do you do in those moments? Because awareness is the first step in changing that, what you're doing. Organize the thoughts. Put them into words. Write. If you don't like writing, make a little map. Draw something of what's going on in your body. Draw a picture of what's going on in your body. Put it into some kind of word, or, like get it out, in other words, and organize it in some way. Ask yourself, what is this fear or whatever trying to tell you? What is it protecting inside of you? Maybe that you feel like you're not enough. What is it protecting? What do you need right now? Do you need to hear some words of comfort? Do you need someone to put their arms around you? What do you need? And then be brave enough to reach out for what you need. Don't expect someone to just know what you need. That gets ourselves in trouble, especially in marriage, right? Ask for what you need. And try to figure out that pattern. What is my pattern? What do I get stuck in? The thoughts lead to what? What gets triggered? Then what do I do? What do I say to myself? What's my pattern? Try to break that pattern. You can do things like try to find some calmness in yourself. Get curious, all these questions. Get curious about, what is this trying to teach me or say to me? If that's the light on my dashboard, then what is it saying to me? What do I need to change? Give yourself compassion. A lot of us are real bad at that. I am a perfectionist. I'm one of the worst. but I have to slow down sometimes and give myself compassion. I would be kind to someone else if they came to me with some of the things I tell myself. But then if I feel that way, I'm going to beat myself up for feeling that way, right? But I need to learn to give myself that compassion. Stay connected. Find courage. Courage is the fact that I am scared, but I'm going to go on. That's what courage is. It's not that I'm not scared. So find that courage in yourself. Bring it to God. He said that he would never leave us or forsake us. He never called himself the fixer. Not that he can't do it. He is the healer. He is the deliverer, all of that. But he didn't always calm the storm. Sometimes he just was with you or with them in the Bible, if you're talking about that. Through the storm, he called himself the comforter. And so we bring it to Jesus, not just in a list of, I need you to do this, 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 this. Because remember, we're talking about trying to not avoid what's going on. But I go to that place inside of me that's feeling anxious or feeling afraid or feeling hopeless or helpless right now. And I go to God and I bring that. I come with that to him. And I say, Lord, I'm feeling just absolutely helpless. How am I even going to put food on the table for my kids? How am I, whatever it is, I'm feeling so afraid right now, God. And that is how he can come in and be our comforter, because we open our hearts. We open our deepest part of ourselves. We come to him in spirit and in truth. This is the truth about what's going on inside of me, God. This is what my human spirit is experiencing. And that's when he can come in and bring us comfort. But if we just come to him with a list of do this and give me a job and, well, yeah, he can do those things, but he's not being the comforter in that moment, if that makes sense, what the difference is. So, like, for example, if I just say to myself, oh, God's going to take care of it all, then sometimes that can be avoidant. But if I say to myself, you know what, I'm really hurting and I'm in pain. God, I want to bring this to you. I need to feel your presence right now. He will come and he will wrap himself around you. So, don't use faith as just a way to kind of keep your emotions at bay. But use faith as a thing to draw yourself closer to God in these moments. That's what I would say. Also, the Lord's not going to crucify you for this. He's not going to condemn you. There was a man in Mark 9, I wrote it down. He said, help my unbelief. I do believe, but there's a part of me that is struggling, and that's okay. It's completely okay. God knows that there's a part of us that's struggling right now, and that's where he's going to meet us. That's where ministry begins, is that place of need. When you go to these deep emotions, they can sometimes be overwhelming. You don't have to live there. I'm not talking about just going and living in that I'm scared. Oh, God, I'm scared. Oh, what am I going to do, right? You don't live there in that emotion. Right. You visit it. You address it. You get curious about it. What is it telling me? And then you do something, and you work on it, and then you go on about your business. You don't live there. I use the analogy of a hallway with different doors, or like in our houses, right? I don't just go sit in the bathroom and live in the bathroom. I don't live in my bedroom all day long. There are different places that I have to go in for a reason, and then I go out and go somewhere else. So that's how we kind of have to do with overwhelming emotions as well. We visit them, we do the work we need to do, and then we're back out. It's okay. I don't have to live there. There's one of my favorite quotes is that suffering is a given, which I don't like that part, but suffering is a given, but suffering alone is just intolerable. Wow. And so one of the things we have to do at times like this is to make sure, yes, we may have physical distance, but that we're not having emotional and social distance from people, that we are staying connected. That's very important. We may need help right now. We may need professional help right now, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We're hardwired to connect and co-regulate emotions with each other. That's how we're created, to not just be islands to ourselves. But our emotions actually, when we co-regulate emotions with someone, when we're sharing with someone, talking about it, letting them be there with us and in that emotion with us, we're opening up our hearts to them, then I think the statistics are something like 70 to 80% faster our emotions regulate than if I'm trying to self-regulate just all by myself. So that's very important. There's research, and I'll just give you a little tidbit of it. There's research about somebody looking up at a steep hill with a backpack full of rocks. And they look up at that hill and they basically ask them, how difficult, what would it be like to climb that hill? And then they let a friend come and be with them. And they ask them kind of the same questions. And when a friend is with us and we know we're not alone, then it decreases our anxiety. It literally decreases the anxiety in our body because we know someone's got my back. I'm not in this alone. It won't be so bad. I'll have help. And that's the key here, is that as a friend or as a counselor, I can't fix problems, but I can be with you. And that's the same thing. Not that the Lord can't fix. I'm not saying that. He can fix things. But the most important thing is that he just wants to know us in our suffering and be with us. And once again, like I said, don't be afraid to ask for professional help if that's what you need as well. Absolutely. That's okay.
I'd like to ask another question, and the reason I kind of threw this one in there is because I do know your story. Experts are telling us that through this coronavirus, that there is, and there already has been, a major loss of life.
Yes.
And with that great of loss of life, there's a good chance that people watching on this are going to be affected by that. And there's going to be some major emotions. You just told us, you briefly told the story about how you just had a loss of a loved one and you can't attend a funeral. So how would you work with someone through that type of situation?
One of the things is just if I were walking with someone through that journey, I would make sure that they felt like they were not alone. It's if I were the one going through the grief, so I'm not sure, which aspect you're trying to really address, maybe both. If I were going through the grief, then I would make sure I didn't isolate myself, which is it's so overwhelming. When you lose someone in that capacity. And it's very easy to, I don't know, the best word for me is just overwhelmed. You are completely overwhelmed and you don't even know what to do with yourself. Sometimes people may even say, how are you feeling? I might be feeling 25, 30 things at one moment in time. It's just horrible, and it never stops. It's a constant bombardment of emotion. Your heart is breaking. It's triggering the same circuits in the brain as physical pain. I mean, you're physically hurting. Your heart is breaking. There's a million things going through your head. One of the things I use when I'm working with people in grief is it's a picture. I don't have it with me, but it's a picture called the grief ball. You can Google it, the grief ball. It basically looks like mixed up yarn. And then on every little section of the string, it shows a different emotion. And it's like at one moment in time, you may be feeling all those things. So once again, sitting with yourself, slowing all that down, mapping out, what do I feel? What am I thinking? What are all the things? Trying to kind of organize it, reaching out, don't isolate yourself. Another biggie for me was a lot of good meaning people say things, but they've never been there. And you just have to shake some things off. And the other thing is there's a lot of social pressure. How long should you grieve? How should you grieve? When should you cry? How much is too much crying? How much is too little crying? What verbiage do you use? If you were married, do you still use words like we, and I don't mean the French we. So, there's all these kind of pressures out there. Everybody has this different mindset of what grieving should or should not look like. And just take that pressure off of yourself. Have a couple of people in your life that you can trust that are really going to get very honest with you. If you're going too far or in the wrong direction, they're going to sit down and talk with you. But you may not need to listen to just everything everybody says and feel that pressure. Take that pressure off.
That's so good.
So, I don't know if that helps.
Oh, that was great. And one last question, if you don't mind. I know we've talked about grief and we've talked about anxiety and a lot of these very deep, dark issues that people are going through. But if you don't mind, I'd like to have a little bit of a swing up. And where's the hope?
Yes, good question. Oh, our help comes from the Lord, right?
That's it.
Um, so yes, absolutely. Our help comes from the Lord. I would say that that's very true. Think on the things that are good and helpful and hopeful. Turn the news off sometimes. Get away from social media. A reset for me is to get outside. And when I feel the sun, sometimes the sun isn't out, but if I just get outside, breathe in the fresh air and hear the birds chirping, it's kind of like my body says, it's going to be okay.
Mm.
God's still got the universe in his hand. And, I've made it through a lot of things before, and I'm going to make it through this one too. That's a reset for me. You may have to find what your reset is. Get moving, exercise. Don't just sit at home and eat all the snacks like all the memes say. If you're not working, then find something else to do, but move in some kind of way. Or else, yes, the kind of chemicals that are more prone to anxiety and depression and things like that are going to set in if you're not moving. Um, let's see, surround yourself with people. Don't isolate yourself socially just because you have to be physically isolated. Surround yourself with people. Do whatever you have to do. Another big thing for me has been my pastor and pastor's wife. They are getting on Marco Polo every night. We have a church family Marco Polo, and every night before bed, our pastor prays for us, and he prays over our homes. And it just does something that nothing else can do, because he's there, he's covering me, he's covering my home. And it's different. We always go to church and then we bring that spirit back home, but now we have an opportunity to have something different, because that spirit is in our home. He is praying in our home. His voice is reverberating in our home, and it's just a different type of covering, and it's very precious to me. And just stay connected and fill yourself with the word. Hopefulness, hopeful people, all of those things. I don't know if that helps or answers your question.
Oh, I'm definitely sure that that's helped somebody. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for pouring your heart out to us, giving us some great information. To everyone out there on Facebook Live, if you have a question for Gill, what we're going to do is we're going to put her personal email address in the comment section. And because I know that this is a lot of topics that are very personal to people, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want to put a question in the comments. And so we're going to put her email address in the comments section. Feel free to, and this is with her permission, please feel free to email her, communicate, and just feel free to completely open up about what you're feeling and what you're thinking. And let's do this together. Everyone is in this together. And so, Gill, thank you again for all of your time. Thank you to everybody on Facebook Live that joined in this evening. And I hope that everyone has a great week in quarantine. And find somebody to do it with. God bless you all. And bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.